Okay, so I'm gonna do this in English because it's a little bit more easy for me. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming in. My name is Sergio, and probably the first memory that I have is of when I was 4 years old, about this high over here. And I remember that I was fishing piranhas in the Amazon River with my family. I remember that I didn't catch any sort of fish whatsoever, and that was a bummer. But I do remember from that trip that I was in a boat, and I have a fuzzy memory as well of, for example, the hotel room doors that they had. Some animals carved in a plate, a wooden plate. Like I remember that the room numbers had one had a jaguar on top, another one had like a parrot, and another one a gorilla as well. So it's like it's a bit fuzzy. But then there's also another memory that I have that we were having lunch at this long cantina type of table, you know, and we were just talking, and then suddenly the waiters just started coming in, like very professional, and they started carrying on this big plates with a silver dome on top of them, and once they put it in front of us, and they started removing the lid, we started slowly seeing what was beyond there, and there it was, a pair of juicy brains, monkey brains in front of us. Well, the truth is that this last memory didn't happen. It was, for some reason, whenever I think about this trip to the Amazon River, my brain always mixes up with the Indiana Jones movie. This is very weird. But fortunately, we have photos like this and videos that my dad usually recorded whenever we had these trips. And I mean, birthdays, christenings, any sort of event, he was there with his Sony Handycam, just recording everything. And so the result is, like, we have a bunch of old tapes at home that are just gathering dust. And even though that this wasn't from an event, this was a video that was in that box full of tapes. And that's basically me trying to ride a bike. So whenever I first look at this video, this footage of me, there's a whole set of events and a whole set of thoughts that come to my mind. And first and foremost, why didn't I pedal? It's like, it's so ridiculous. I can see my brother going above and beyond, just like going crazy nuts just to make me pedal just once. But there I was, just standing cool as a cucumber and just trying to look pretty to the camera, right? So, yeah, adorable. My girlfriend says the same. Anyways, and then she asks, "Dear God, Sergio, what happened to you?" Basically, afterwards, I cannot help to think also about how simple life was back then. And how I wish to go back to that time and just relive that moment and see everything as it was, and go to my garage, play with my brothers, because whenever I'm looking at this footage, I'm also like thinking about how I feel like a detective and just try to see how my life was impacted with everything that I've lived through. And whenever I look at these memories, these videos, it's a nice place for me to make some sort of self-reflection as well. I can see myself who I am, who I was and who I want to become as well. So it's always that feeling again of, damn it, I wish I was there again. Like, what happened to my life? Everything was so simple back then. I think there's always this feeling of nostalgia in all of us that inevitably every human being has it, and at some point in their life that they just want to go back to that moment. And even though the photos and videos, they're nice to try and have that feeling, they don't allow you to be transported there. They don't quite capture the environment, everything that you were feeling at that moment. So, but with virtual reality, that's a bit different. With virtual reality, basically, it's a technology that allows you to get transported anywhere. And suddenly, you have the power to pick up your memories, dust them off, and experience them one more time. And that's very powerful. And realizing this potential for society, I joined Cora Virtual Reality. So for those of you that don't know, Cora is the world's first fully dedicated virtual reality shop. And it's also an innovation hub for people in Copenhagen to come in and try virtual reality for their own, and think about the wildest imaginations that you can have and can do with virtual reality. And we're also a production house that is focusing on producing content, 360 videos and 3D animations for virtual reality, but we're focusing on creating content with a real purpose, that's not something gimmicky, but that wants to do something and use this medium in a very purposeful way for our society as well. We've had a wide range of projects ranging from marketing to education and arts. So it's a very wide range. And lately we've been collaborating with key partners in the healthcare industry to explore a little bit more the topic of mental health care as well. And one of the potentials that we saw was with recreating memories for dementia patients. And I'm going to talk to you about 2 cases today. So one of them, the first one that I want to talk to you about, it's the case of Bente and Silke. So Bente is the old lady in the right, and she remembers very vividly about going going around town with her granddaughter. Which is something really weird because usually I forgot to mention, she's a dementia patient. What that means is with dementia, we have the most common form of dementia is Alzheimer's disease, which I think you are all familiarized with. But it's basically a disease that it's so nefarious that basically it rips away your memories and just leaves you hanging with a few set of them. And for Bente, one of her most precious memories was just like going around town with her granddaughter, and she wanted to cherish that moment. She wanted to protect that moment and relive it, if she could, over and over again. And the truth is, like, time is inevitable, and the granddaughter will grow old as well, and perhaps she won't recognize her in the future. So what we did in this project was basically we packed a 360 camera in our backpack, and we met with the granddaughter, Silke, and we went around town and shot a video of just going through all of those places that they used to go, and that was familiar for them. And it was a very powerful moment for her as well, because suddenly she took it as an experience as well. And for example, this moment right here, it was also a pivotal one, because this was basically in the end when she was saying like, "Goodbye, Grandma, see you tomorrow," and then she gave the camera a hug and a kiss, in a very weird way, but it was very cute. And for Bente it was also very powerful, because she was basically, when she was watching the video, she was being acknowledged of the presence, like it was making her presence in that memory a lot more vivid as well. So that was also very powerful, and that's why perhaps she also took it a lot like an experience. And the word experience, taking these memories as an experience, is very key here, because we're talking about it's not just looking at a video, it's suddenly living it. And it's suddenly acting as if you are there. It's suddenly acting as if you are present. And somehow it's like it's hacking your primal brain and making you do things as if you were there. This is key in that part of the process as well. But still, this is a very powerful experience for Bente in the aftermath, and I'll talk a little bit more about the outcomes. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the other case, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is an 83-year-old woman, and she used to be a church choir singer for a long time in her life. But unfortunately, due to the Alzheimer's disease that she got diagnosed, she no longer could go to go out and visit the same church that she used to. So basically, that part just remained a distant memory, and still one of her most precious ones that she still cherishes. So what we did was basically to go back to the church, the same church that she used to go, and then just film a church choir experience. And basically, I could tell you how she reacted, but I think that it's just way better if I show you.
Så hvis du lige tager dine briller af, ja, så får du den her på I stedet for. Focus, the storm comes.
So, you can see that this is also a very unique experience for her. And the truth is that right after Bente and Elizabeth watched these memories of her, like relive their memories, they were able to recall for a short period of time a little bit more from their past than they did before. Like they suddenly started remembering things that they couldn't before. So it's even though that it was only for a very short time, I think that was still pretty precious. Another key takeaway from this project was also because it was also for the experience part. When we suddenly started taking these memories and showcasing it to other dementia patients that had never stepped foot on church choir before, or they didn't have a granddaughter. But they recognized, for example, the places that the Bente and Silke went for a walk, for example. the thing is that they started feeling, they actually liked the experience. They actually thought that that was a nice experience just to be in the middle of a church choir and sing again, or just be in the middle of the woods with a little a young lady. So I think that was also a very key part in this, because suddenly we started realizing that this was also very powerful for anyone without like, if you create these sort of experiences, these very small experiences of like just touring around town, or doing like an activity such as going to the opera, or going to a concert, just for them to be able to do that from the elderly homes, that's very powerful, because most of them, they cannot go out without supervision, and most of them, they start feeling stressed and anxious about the space that they are in, and sometimes they even have like bad reactions towards the caretakers. So the thing is that once they are in the virtual reality memories or in this virtual reality experiences, they end up feeling a lot more calmer, and at the same time they have that feeling that they're out, they're someplace else, and that eases them and gives them a lot more life quality. So what we're doing right now, like we've developed these kits that basically can enable the caretakers to take these people out on trips, and enable them to showcase them and record other experiences for them. We have also developed an app where they can upload all of these experiences and show them to multiple patients at the same time. So it's also, once I start looking at these people, these cases, I just can't help to think about, like, what if it was you? Like, what sort of memories would you like to cherish before, I don't know, if your mind was slowly going away? Like, what sort of memories would you choose to hang on to? What sort of today's events would you like to hold on to? And if you could relive any memory from your life, like, what would it be? So I think that's pretty powerful. But the thing about this project is that this is a part of also another big problem in Denmark as well, and also in the world. But just going to focus a little bit on the Danish market for now. In terms of mental illnesses, like what we have uncovered with also other key partners who are involved in this, like, and who are specialists in the healthcare industry, is that in Denmark there's a lot more people are getting diagnosed with mental illnesses, but these illnesses, they can be cured, but it costs the states like 7.5 billion euros more or less every year, because most of them, like about 35 or 45% of working people in Denmark, they have to of the sick leave, in Denmark, they have to go because of mental illnesses. So that's something that costs the state a lot. And most of the times it's also a matter of most of these diseases are not like you cannot, the state also doesn't provide much support. So such as, for example, phobias and so on, like those sort of acute diseases. And we saw also another opportunity in there. And right now we're also dealing with projects that are treating phobias and anxiety and eating disorders, for instance. And just to give you a small percent, like some numbers is that every fifth Dane. I mean, Denmark is not a big country. It's like 5 million people, and to think about like that, in those 5 million people, every fifth of them, they will be diagnosed with a mental illness during their lifetime. I think that's a little bit worrisome, and the numbers, like they're telling us that 250,000 suffer from anxiety, from depression, and then another 40,000 they are suffering from eating disorders. And when it comes to, for example, treating phobias, the way usually that whenever people go out and seek therapists, the way that it goes is they need to also start making them feel comfortable with the fears. And that can go up to, like, there's also a fear scale, sort of, and it can start with thinking just about a spider, and that's like the smallest fear rate. But then, like, once the spider starts crawling on your arm, then like the anxiety is much more intense. So what you have is, like, you have a therapist right now that usually starts to make you feel comfortable with all of these ideas, with all of these sort of fears, and for example, but right now what we are doing, it's like what we are seeing is that is a very lengthy process, and right now virtual reality is playing a huge role in shortening that process. And for example, and what that means is, for example, right now the person can be exposed to their fears in a very safe environment, and even though those fears are not there, like the spider is not actually crawling up their hand, the therapist is enhancing that experience, and the virtual reality goggles as well, because it will look like the spider, like she will see a spider crawling up their hand even though it's not there, and then the therapist also mimics, like with stick, the movement of the spider, and that will make the experience much more real. And what happens in the brain, it's just that the brain starts to get comfortable with the idea of the spider crawling up the arm. So right now, that means that that can happen with spiders, but it can also happen to, for example, if you're afraid of dogs, and which we are currently working on a project for that, or even if you are afraid of going out to public spaces, such as, for example, going out to the job center because you cannot, you're afraid of social interactions and like tight spaces, like being in tight spaces with people. So we can expose these people to their fears, such as, for example, the fear of flying and crashing, right? And so the potential is huge in this area. And what we have seen, what are key takeaways from our whole odyssey within the virtual reality healthcare industry, is that virtual reality can increase the patient's life quality, as we've seen with dementia patients. And it can also help out with patient compliance rules, making them a little bit more eased out, like in their own environments, or, for example, helping them out to take pills. Right now we have, for example, virtual reality that it's being used to, for example, in kids, like for them to be able to take away their pain, like to relieve their pain symptoms by, for example, imagine that they're getting a shot, a vaccine, like they can put on the headset and just go somewhere else. And that's helping also in that environment. And it's also a cost-effective treatment. In the future, we definitely believe that such diseases, such as treating phobias, can start to become something that can be treated in our homes without the state needing to pay for such treatments. Like, all you need is just to buy an app, and there you go, you're treating your fears. Yeah, and at least, like, it's yeah, sorry. what we see is that, and also, for example, if we take a look at this last slide with the World Health Organization quote, it says that more than 75% of people are suffering from who are suffering from mental disorders in the developing world, they receive no treatment or care. So the potential of having virtual reality treatment in this area, which we have seen that it's quite powerful, it's very wide and it's very big. And I think that there's also an urgent need in our society for projects like these. So with that said, thank you very much. And I'm very open to questions that you might have. No, I do think augmented reality will play a role in that sense as well. Although I think right now, like our brains can, as you've said, for example, with the fact that you don't see a body in virtual reality, or if you see a body and it's not moving, it feels also very weird. I think that our brains are very can capture that very easily, and perhaps like we will start becoming a lot more used to the fact that we don't have a body per se, or perhaps we will start having a lot better tools, such as, for example, right now with the Gear VR, you start having a controller that basically you can see your hands in the virtual space, even though that it's, for example, 360 video, you can see your hands, and I think that's enhancing a little bit more the experience. But to answer your question, I also believe that when it comes, for example, to augmented reality, it's also a matter of your brain also realizes that it's not there. It's like it's that spider. It's very mimicky, and I'm not entirely sure about if you start seeing something that it's very in high detail, and you start seeing suddenly like a 3D element on top of your arm, like if your brain will still have that suspension of disbelief, because it's like you'll notice like that for example, it's very polygon shaped, for example. But if you do that in virtual reality, where everything is polygon shaped, then your brain can actually like be in the same mood, like, oh, okay, so I'm in a polygon shaped world, and whoa, there's the spider here, and I think that it's like I'm a little bit unsure of how it will play out, but I do believe that, for example, augmented reality could have an impact in healthcare, for example, when it comes to diagnosis of people. Just being able to have a computer just like look you through, and once we start having like chips implanted on us, we can, for example, start seeing like, oh, okay, your liver is kind of bad because yesterday you drank too much. Things like that, and that can, for example, help diagnose a doctor to diagnose that. Unfortunately, we didn't do a scientific paper on that. Like, we didn't work with any university on this. It was mainly with the communes, and these. I believe that we also need a bigger study case for such claims, like to be. For example, the short-term memory case, like that part where they start remembering things from the past. I mean, it happened to both of these ladies, but we don't know if it can happen with more. I believe that.
There's a lot of money on this dementia patients.
It is, but so far I don't believe that we have received any inquiries in terms of that direction, actually. But we would be open for that.
How much does it cost? Does it cost
I have It's just that I'm thinking in kroners and I'm trying to scale it down. I don't know. I believe that it should be around like 1,500 euros, give it or take. I'm not entirely sure, but it's more or less that.
Apart, you have to pay for the videos or the production?
Usually, like we do the partner ups with the elderly care takers, and we teach them how to shoot, and we teach them how to operate the camera, and then they are on the field and they can use our platform to upload whatever their experience they have created and upload it to the platform, and that's the way that we are kind of juggling right now. Yeah.
I do have a question, but I would like to answer John's question first. I study neuroscience and I'm a caretaker in a residential home. And I actually have a colleague who's doing a PhD on using virtual reality with dementia issues. And what they're seeing is that if they use virtual reality early in the morning for just 3-4 minutes, they're improving the patient's mood for the whole day. And that is actually a university paper by the Nottingham University. So there is a lot of research progress. And the question I got is on the idea that you said that we could be treating phobias from home. I am quite reluctant to it because therapists have a lot of training just to be prepared in a wide variety of situations. Because when you're treating phobia, because there is a phobia, many things can go wrong, even virtual reality. So I think virtual reality is a really, really good tool, but I cannot see it as the only treatment without a therapist.
I mean, it's a fair point, but what I think is you'll start having like all of these programs, and I think people need to be sort of aware of their limits. And I mean, if people are not prone for example, treating a phobia, then most likely they are not willing to go one step ahead. And I mean, I think it will start to become, and we will start to do, it's like, first we need to equip these doctors, like, and that has to become like some sort of a partnership, and where we basically start equipping them with powerful tools to aid in their mechanisms, in their treatment mechanisms. But then on the long road, I'm just thinking that it's just a matter of time for, even though that it's not like going to be it's not going to treat the whole society that is afraid of chickens, of dogs, or whatever. If people are willing to do so, and if they want to do it on their own, I believe that we will start having a lot more of these, because telehealth is an increasing large theme in our society, and it's saving the state billions of dollars if people don't get checked in to an hospital, for example. And I think you'll start having a lot more money getting poured into such solutions. And once you start, for example, having these sort of gamification elements and therapeutic processes, then I believe that and with the care, I mean, the apps of course need to be defined with, for example, with caretakers and with specialists in the area, but I believe that sort of process can start to become a lot more, like most of it can start to become done like from home, like most of the work. So that's more or less where I see that it's heading. Like perhaps it's not going to take away all of the people out of the hospital, like for treating phobias, but it's starting to take part of those, like part of that treatment, and taking it at home. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.